A very good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the SMF New Year Conversations, Building a Stronger Maritime Singapore. My name is Emmeline, and I'll be your host for today's webinar. Thank you for joining us. To open today's event, we are pleased to have Mr. Andreas Sohmen-Pao, Chairman of the Singapore Maritime Foundation, to address us. Mr. Sohmen-Pao, please.
Welcome to the SMF New Year Conversations. Like so many other firsts recently, it is the first time in our foundation's history that we are not able to celebrate the New Year together in person. But if there is a maritime community in the world that can face down a pandemic, it is here in Singapore because of the strong cohesion and goodwill between the participants. Thank you for tuning in and for giving us the opportunity to wish you the best for the year ahead. And thanks to our guest of honor, Mr. Chee Hong Tat, Senior Minister of State, Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Transport, for being with us. I'd like to take this opportunity to express thanks on behalf of the community to our seafarers. As companies, we depend on them to keep the ships moving. And as citizens, we depend on them to deliver the goods and energy we need. Many of you worked on crew change protocols and logistics, not least those in MPA and amongst community partners who made it possible to get seafarers home while preventing the spread of COVID in Singapore. We are very grateful to you all for your efforts. And finally, thanks to all of you in our port city for what you are doing to keep national and global trade going. Before passing the word to our guest of honor, a quick look back and a quick look forwards. Amidst the disruptions, SMF continued its efforts to ensure a strong talent pipeline. Most of our physical events were adapted to virtual or hybrid formats, such as the 5th run of the MSc Maritime Careers Workshop. This event was held on a fully interactive virtual platform for the first time with over 200 participants. Maritime One awarded a total of 40 scholarships, and we would like to thank our sponsors for continuing to invest in the next generation of talent despite these challenging times. I'm pleased to say that this year saw the highest number of female scholars awarded since the program's inception, in fact, more women than men, supporting our aspiration to see better balance in the industry. Earlier in the year, SMF established the International Advisory Panel on Maritime Decarbonization with the support of MPA. Through our discussions, we hope to develop strategies and actions to help the industry achieve its goal of sustainable shipping. And we look forward to working with many of you on this. A quick look ahead. There are a lot of people guessing what the world will look like on the other side of COVID, and I won't pretend to have a better crystal ball than anyone else, but I believe we can expect a world, in short, that is globalized, networked, cleaner, but imbalanced. Globalized because we have seen how effective it is to source products from around the world, and consumers and businesses expect to be able to buy anything from anywhere. Yes, there are some nationalistic overtones these days, and services will continue to be localized, but free trade agreements are still being developed, and I don't think we should expect global trade to stop in its tracks. The maritime sector will see good demand when global growth returns, and some sectors like containers and LNG are seeing this already. I say the world will be networked because the interface between humans and machines is accelerating, and our ability to tap into data, robots, and autonomy is increasing. We are actively developing strategies for how to take part in these changes so that we are not left behind. I say the world will gradually become cleaner because COVID has created a sense of human vulnerability against nature. We are not infallible. We are putting our lives at risk by taking the environment for granted, and there is now strong global momentum to address climate change. And I used the word imbalanced because we have been building up excesses for a long time. Excessive debt combined with changing demographics, can create major surprises in terms of supply, demand, inflation, and asset prices. And this affects shipping as all other industries. I think we need to be prepared for more shocks, whether they are related to the climate or to the markets. The Singapore Maritime Foundation looks forward to working with all of you in our community to participate in the opportunities while staying resilient against the risks. We will return in a moment to talk about the future in our panel discussion with local leaders who will be sharing their thoughts on building Maritime Singapore's sustainable future. Please stay tuned in for that. And I hope this will provide some insights on where the industry is going. But for now, I'd like to wish you all a happy and prosperous year ahead, and we'll hand over to our guest speaker, SMS Chee Hong Tat. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Sohmen-Pao. Next, we would like to invite our guest of honor, Mr. Chee Hong Tat, Senior Minister of State, Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and Ministry of Transport, to deliver his welcome address. Mr. Chee, please.
Mr. Andreas Sohmen-Pao, Chairman of Singapore Maritime Foundation, Ms. Caroline Yang, President of the Singapore Shipping Association, Mr. Simon Kuik, President of the Association of Singapore Marine Industries, Mr. Ngiam Chiang Ming, Chairman of Maritime and Port Authority of Singapore, colleagues and friends, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon and Happy New Year. 2020 is an unprecedented year of disruption and suffering for many people around the world. Singapore is not spared from the COVID-19 pandemic, but we count our blessings as we are in a safer and more stable situation than many other countries. After a steep decline in early 2020 when COVID-19 first struck, international sea trade volumes have shown signs of recovery from the second half of last year. This has helped Maritime Singapore to stay resilient in 2020, even though our economy contracted by 5.8%. We have kept our port open throughout the pandemic. There were significant disruptions to supply chains that have caused congestions at different ports around the world. This has affected our vessel waiting times and our port productivity too, though we continue to facilitate the flow of essential goods and cargo through Singapore. Compared to 2019, Singapore's container throughput in 2020 registered 36.9 million TEUs, a slight drop of 0.9% compared to 2019. Cargo throughput dropped by 5.8% from the previous year to 590.3 million tons, mainly due to the decline in oil cargo volumes handled. Vessel arrival tonnage increased by 1.7% to a record of 2.9 billion gross tons. And Singapore remained the world's top bunkering hub, with sales amounting to 49.8 million tons, an increase of 5% year-on-year. Maritime Singapore also continued to fare well in global rankings. Singapore retained our top position in the Xinhua Baltic International Shipping Center Development Index for the 7th consecutive year. The Port of Singapore was named the best Asian seaport for the 32nd time, and the Asian Freight Logistics and Supply Chain Awards. In 2020, our International Maritime Center, or IMC for short, grew in scale and diversity. We welcomed 19 new international shipping groups and maritime companies under MPA's Maritime Sector Incentive Scheme. Existing companies with an established presence in Singapore also expanded their operations here. These trends reflect a vote of confidence in Singapore's stability, connectivity, and capabilities. When the seas are rough and dark clouds are looming in the horizon, Singapore has differentiated ourselves as a trusted hub and a safe harbor for maritime companies. For example, Yang Ming chose Singapore as its regional base for its container shipping business to provide liner services across Asia, Middle East, North Europe, and the Mediterranean. Swire Bulk, previously the dry bulk shipping division of China Navigation, has established its new headquarters in Singapore. Wilhelmsen Ships Services embarked on a joint venture with German engineering conglomerate ThyssenKrupp to manufacture 3D printed maritime spare parts in Singapore. We have done well, but we must not rest on our laurels. We should continue to work hard and plan ahead. MPA has previously identified 3 driving forces affecting the maritime industry: disruption, digitalization, and decarbonization, what we call the 3 Ds. Let me now briefly touch on each D. First, disruption. The impact of shifting global supply chains started even before the pandemic, but COVID-19 has accelerated the pace of change. Companies are reassessing their operations and deciding where to situate different parts of the production process to enhance resilience and mitigate trade barriers. I believe globalization will continue, but we can expect supply chains to become more complex, and customers will place greater premium on factors such as reliability and flexibility. These trends are not necessarily bad for a hub port like Singapore, which competes on superior connectivity and quality of service rather than low costs and having access to large domestic markets. But we need to continually review our policies and plans to move in tandem with industry needs and market requirements so that we can seize new opportunities and stay ahead of the competition. Second, digitalization. COVID-19 has accelerated the digital revolution, and new technologies are transforming the way we live, work, and play. Digital information and data are being generated, stored, shared, and analyzed at an ever-increasing scale and pace. This will open up new possibilities to raise our productivity and enhance the value add to customers. At the same time, we recognize that technology must go hand in hand with skills development so that our workers can keep up with the new business models and operating environment. To be effective, high tech requires high touch and high trust. Technology does not replace the need for human workers, but it complements and enhances the effectiveness of our workforce. Third, decarbonization. Developments surrounding maritime decarbonization are set to alter the modus operandi of our industry over the coming decades. The International Maritime Organization has set an ambitious target to halve greenhouse gas emissions from international shipping by 2050, based on 2008 levels, and to phase them out entirely within this century. To achieve this, existing ship designs, fuel types, and port infrastructure must evolve. And we need to make these investments starting from now to be ready to meet the IMO targets in this new operating environment. So ladies and gentlemen, these 3 Ds will present new opportunities and challenges for Maritime Singapore. We'll build on our strong foundations and work with our tripartite partners to grow the maritime industry and create more jobs for Singaporeans. The government will support the industry in this effort by focusing on 3 Ts, and these are trust, transformation, and talent. The first T is trust, and this includes both trust in Singapore as a maritime hub, as well as trust amongst our stakeholders in Singapore. Over the years, the government, industry, and unions have established strong partnerships anchored on trust. This close relationship between our tripartite partners has helped us to weather many storms together. Last year, there was a period when hundreds of thousands of seafarers globally were stranded at sea as a result of border closures and a stoppage of air travel. When I met the Singapore Maritime Officers Union and the Singapore Organization of Seamen, shortly after I joined MOT, the union leaders raised their concerns with me and with MPA colleagues. We discussed what steps to take to facilitate crew change while ensuring safety and preventing the virus from spreading in our community. Our tripartite partners banded together and introduced innovative solutions to facilitate safe crew change for vessels calling at the Port of Singapore. With support from the IMO and other international organizations, we also launched the COVID-19 Singapore Crew Change Guidebook. We set up a Crew Facilitation Center and established a Singapore Shipping Tripartite Alliance Resilience Fund to enhance upstream measures in the home countries where the crew originate from. These initiatives allow Singapore to play our role in tackling a humanitarian crisis for the crew and showing the way forward for the global maritime industry, like a lighthouse that guides ships in a thick fog. In the fight against COVID-19, one important next step for the maritime sector is to vaccinate and protect our workers in Singapore, starting with those who have to go on board vessels, such as seafarers, pilots, surveyors, and cargo officers. I'm confident that the trust we have built amongst the tripartite partners will help us with the vaccination exercise. Another example of the strong collaboration arising from the high trust environment in Singapore is the enhancement of intermodal connectivity. As a cargo solution, intermodal connectivity is cheaper than full air freight and faster than full sea freight. It is not required in all situations, but it is useful as an additional logistics option for companies to move their supplies and products. We previously worked with the industry to develop intermodal connectivity solutions for specific goods, such as chilled meat, and to meet increased e-commerce volumes. In January this year, government agencies partnered industry stakeholders to roll out a new intermodal express cargo solution between Batam and Singapore. High-value, time-sensitive cargoes, such as electronic components manufactured in Batam, are first transported by sea to our port before being trucked to the airport and to be flown to other countries. The entire shipment process occurs within a single day and benefits manufacturers and logistics companies in Batam and Singapore by enabling a quicker, more efficient, and cost-effective distribution of cargo. It also enables Singapore-based companies to leverage on cost efficiencies through extended production bases in Batam. We will build on the successes of the solution and continue working with industry partners to explore other novel intermodal solutions to boost Singapore's cargo connectivity and buttress our position as a logistic hub of the region. Going forward, the government will continue to keep Singapore as a trusted hub for maritime operations, one that is underpinned by stability, adherence to the rule of law, and pro-business policies. The second T is transformation. This includes reviewing our rules and processes and supporting new innovations in technology and business models. The need to transform was most evident when COVID-19 struck. We had to relook, we had to change various familiar processes to reduce the spread of the virus and keep our community safe. Within the maritime sector, MPA and our terminal operators introduced new protocols that allow visiting ships to call and undertake contactless operations. This reduced the need for shore-based maritime personnel to board ships that call at our terminals, thereby lowering the risk of COVID-19 transmission without compromising operational safety. MPA is also leveraging technology to improve the safety of maritime operations. Later this week, we will introduce safe entry at sea at our piers, where shore-based personnel boarding vessels will scan a unique QR code to provide information on the ships they are boarding. This reinforces the existing safe management measures and facilitates contact tracing of shore-based personnel who board and work on ships in our anchorages. Singapore is continuing with the long-term investments to transform our port. to secure our pole position as the world's top transshipment hub. We partner our port operators, PSA and Jurong Port, to co-fund R&D to automate manpower-intensive and manual processes to improve port efficiency and productivity. For example, PSA is looking into automating key crane and key site operations such as coning and deconing systems for containers. We are enhancing our digital connectivity to better serve customers at our port and with ports around the world. Digital Port at SG will be upgraded to facilitate the booking of marine services in the Port of Singapore. It can support digital exchanges across multiple stakeholders, such as arriving vessels, marine pilots, and marine service providers. This will enable just-in-time operations and increase the efficiency and productivity of activities that occur in our port waters. In a similar vein, we will also expand this digital effort beyond the Port of Singapore under the Digital Oceans Initiative to harness global port-to-port and system-to-system digital connectivity. Singapore will do our part as a global maritime standards bearer to help member states of the IMO to build maritime single windows to enhance interoperability between systems of ports around the world. The government will also continue to support transformation efforts by maritime firms in Singapore. Small and medium enterprises are not left out. They can tap on the Maritime Digitalization Playbook as a guide to develop and implement digitalization plans. Companies can also apply for grants under MPA's Maritime Cluster Fund should they wish to set up new business lines, upskill their workforce, or implement productivity-improving solutions. We welcome first movers and pioneers to test bid and develop new innovations under our Pier 71 initiative and the MPA Living Lab, with the hope that these continue to draw in innovative firms and talent from around the world. My target for the team is to grow Singapore into the world's #1 hub for maritime high-tech startups, leveraging on our strengths in both digital technology and maritime. We should aim to become the Silicon Valley of maritime startups. Similarly, we are taking steps to realize a greener maritime future. At present, LNG is widely seen as a viable and clean transitional marine fuel to reduce carbon emissions from ships. Ship owners and charterers like CMA CGM and BHP are investing in LNG-fueled vessels, both container ships and bulk carriers. Singapore has been developing LNG bunkering capabilities under the LNG bunkering pilot program. We partnered port administrations to establish a global network of LNG bunker-ready ports, co-funded the construction of LNG-fueled vessels, and continue to promote LNG as a cleaner interim fuel. On 4th January this year, Keppel Offshore and Marine delivered Singapore's first LNG bunkering vessel, Fuel LNG Berlina. And with this, the Port of Singapore is now ready to support ship-to-ship LNG bunkering in our waters. In anticipation of future growth in demand, MPA is evaluating proposals to award up to 2 additional LNG bunker supplier licenses later this year. But there's scope to do more beyond LNG, such as in the areas of setting new standards and developing green solutions associated with zero or low carbon fuels. Through the 40 million Maritime Green Future Fund, MPA is working with the industry and academia to develop technologies and pilot the use of alternative marine fuels such as methanol and biofuels, and also electric vessels. We are starting with our harborcraft sector. $9 million has been set aside to support up to 3 consortiums over the next 5 years under a R&D grant call to decarbonize the domestic harborcraft fleet. We have set up an international advisory panel which brings together thought leaders from around the world. This is chaired by Andreas and co-chaired by Wing Sun, and the panel will recommend strategies to chart the way forward for decarbonization in the shipping industry. I look forward to receiving their recommendations during the Singapore Maritime Week in April this year. We have strong research capabilities, and we will build on this to establish Singapore as a center of excellence for R&D in maritime decarbonization. We will do this by supporting institutes of higher learning, technology companies, and industry partners, and strengthening the R&D collaboration with international organizations. In the longer term, our target is to equip the Port of Singapore to supply a wide range of future cleaner fuel types to meet the diverse needs of ships that choose to call here. These endeavors will not only help secure Singapore's lead as a top bunkering hub, but also support the vision for a greener and more sustainable maritime ecosystem. And this brings me to the third and final T, which is talent. Because we know without talent, nothing happens. Talent development is key. Currently, Maritime Singapore employs over 170,000 people across a diverse range of jobs. Now, with the 3Ds that I mentioned earlier, demands for of the traditional maritime job roles are also shifting quickly. We are seeing the rise of cross-disciplinary skills in areas such as data analytics, automation, and robotics. And sustainability will feature more prominently going forward. And this bodes well for Singapore as a global and inclusive hub for talent. The expanding range and diversity of maritime careers will open up many new and fulfilling career opportunities for our people. Now, notwithstanding the pandemic, maritime companies are actively hiring to meet their growing operational needs. We have seen strong interest by locals in taking up roles within the maritime sector. For example, PSA Singapore and its service providers have hired about 600 locals since August 2020. They cover frontline operational roles such as prime mover drivers and crane operators, and also engineers and IT executives. Moving forward, we'll continue to invest in and build a future-ready maritime workforce. A key priority will be to create more opportunities for individuals to gain a wider exposure to business networks locally and abroad, strengthen their leadership capabilities and global perspectives. We are also exploring ways to better support and nurture youths who have keen interest in pursuing a maritime career, be it shore-based or seafaring roles. We'll do so in partnership with our tripartite partners and the various institutes of higher learning who currently administer the Maritime One and tripartite maritime scholarships and the maritime education programs. MPA will also support companies in their ongoing efforts to upskill and reskill workers by making available resources and guidance to support job redesign. Ladies and gentlemen, to wrap up, 2020 has certainly not been an easy year, but Maritime Singapore demonstrated true grit, resilience, and versatility. As a united and cohesive team, we put our hearts and our minds together to focus on the issues at hand, and we overcame difficult challenges while developing new capabilities. So as we step into the new year, one which points to hope for a gradual recovery, let us adopt this same approach, but with a renewed focus on the 3 Ts: trust, transformation, and talent. I have no doubt that if we work closely together, Maritime Singapore will continue to grow from strength to strength. Let me end by wishing everybody a happy and healthy new year. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chee. Despite the disruptions brought about by the COVID-19 pandemic, SMF has continued its effort in promoting the maritime industry and its many opportunities. Now, let us recap the highlights of the past year with a short video. Please enjoy. We hope you have enjoyed the video. We will now move on to the panel discussion on building Maritime Singapore's sustainable future. 2020 was a challenging year for all, where industries and businesses had to adapt and evolve to navigate the disruptions that COVID-19 presented. Today's panel will share insights on how Maritime Singapore remain versatile amidst these challenges and how it can continue to remain as a leading international maritime center in the years to come. We now have the panel on stage. Our moderator today is Mr. Andreas Sohmen-Pao, Chairman of SMF. For our panelists, we have Mr. Simon Kuik, President of the Association of Singapore Marine Industries, Ms. Quah Ley Hoon, Chair Executive of the Maritime and Port Authority of Singapore, Ms. Caroline Young, President of the Singapore Shipping Association. Mr. Sohmen-Pao, over to you and the panelists.
Okay, well, we have about half an hour, so we're going to do a sort of rapid fire question format. And we're going to bring the audience in with questions about halfway through. So please do queue up your questions on Zoom. But I'm going to get things started with some questions that tap into your personal insights and perspectives, maybe starting with you, Ley Hoon. You know, last year was clearly the year of COVID. What were some of the positive and negative surprises while you were tackling COVID? And how do you balance near-term operational demands with all these long-term strategies that we need to be working on, like digitalization, decarbonization?
Well, for MP itself, I think it's been a year which many would describe full of surprises, and it's actually has a lot of things that's happened. We actually didn't realize that 1 year has passed so fast. And yet we had hoped that the 1 year would have passed very fast. The positive, I would say, is really, I would describe it as the tango dance that we have actually worked with the various associations and partners in the fight in this crisis. The negative thing is that it is a virus that's so invisible and it's mutating all the time, and we are chasing after it. Now, let me describe the tango dance. The first dance was how we kept the business to continue in terms of operations, even during our circuit breaker. That was a dance where we had to go out to companies and ensure that business continue. Second dance, I would say, is really a Maritime Singapore Together package, where we put in place some measures to help companies in terms of cost. The third dance, it became, I would say, a hip hop, because that's where we ran into crew change, and you've heard about how Minister earlier mentioned about the various measures we work together. It's a hip hop because some of the measures were actually thought through over 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, and we all came together and implemented. Then recently will be about how to further protect our onshore workers. So from a hip hop, it now become a break dance. So this is the positive thing for me, that I've learned quite a number of different ways to dance with the various stakeholders, and it's been a real, I'm very proud and very privileged to be able to work with really very professional partners around, and we did well last year for the port.
Thank you, thank you. Caroline, you wear 2 hats, and we're going to hear more from you with your SSA hat in a moment, but can I ask you, as CEO of Hong Lam Marine, how was 2020 for you in terms of the bunker business side?
Okay, it was good. So, you know, the bunker craft operators, the bunker tankers, just like the whole shipping, was actually, in someone's word, in continuous crisis for a long time. And then we went into 2020 with full of hope and optimism. And the first 2 months was amazing for the bunker suppliers. The margins that they have were the margins that they never imagined they could have. And then, of course, the oil crisis and the COVID-19 brought the margins down to earth. But with the COVID-19 crisis, I think Singapore has shown that it can manage this crisis properly, and we can do crew change in a very systematic way with safe protocols. And that has helped to bring the vessels into Singapore to do the bunkering as well as a crew change. So bunkering business has actually benefited from COVID-19, I think. Yeah, that's my thought. Yeah, and when I saw the numbers, I was hoping for 50 million, but 49.8 is close enough, Yeah. So, but fundamentally, I think it was IMO 2020 that helped the bunker business, because now you have proprietary fuels, you have blended fuels that cannot commingle. Now the suppliers can actually brand their fuels with better margins. And then for the bunker tankers, because you cannot commingle, so you need more bunker tankers. So all in all, it was a good year.
Great. Simon, turning to you, you know, Caroline used the phrase continuous crisis, which may be familiar words for some of your members. It's been a tough few years for the services industry, first with the oil downturn and then with COVID. How do you see the members of ASMI best positioning themselves for the future?
Yes, indeed. The industry has been facing a prolonged downturn since 2014. It's pretty hard for the industry. But the industry has overcome many previous storms. In my own career, I've seen at least 3 major ones. And each time we have emerged stronger, redefine ourselves, and become more relevant for the future growth. Yep. So this time round, the COVID has actually created another opportunity for us. The transformation roadmap that we put in place because of the energy transition has been well implemented. But we see the expeditizations of energy transition because of the COVID from the utility player, from the oil majors, and I think that is a good sign for us. The transformation has also given us more resilience. The plans are in place. They are still fundamentally strong. And what we need to do now is to build on it further, invest on the manpower, invest on the IPs of design, so that we emerge stronger to become with more balanced portfolio of product solution, anchor and pivot towards decarbonization, meaning gas solution, which Minister has mentioned earlier in his speech. We have delivered many. Many of our solutions will now also be contributing to decarbonization of our port and harbor soon. Some bunkering vessel, gas tank, and so on and so forth. And not directly relevant for maritime industry, we also are into strong inroad into offshore renewable, and we deliver offshore renewable substation platforms. We are into development into floating wind as well. Okay. At the same time, the player, the smaller shipyards are also venture into building low carbon, say, hovercraft like ferry. And currently we have 3 large ferry being built in Sengkang Marine Yard for the Norwegian sectors. And I think those are good track records that we will ride on as we recover from the downturn, recover from the COVID, and hopefully we emerge to be a different marine offshore engineering industry. And I'm confident we will be there.
Let me pick up on that in relation to talent, because SMS Chee talked about the critical importance of talent, and we know, you know, all our dreams depend on people to make that happen. It's one of the main focal points of SMF. Can I ask any of you to comment on where you see the gaps today in our talent pool, what more we can do to build the right talent, and maybe a comment on women too. I think it's very exciting, by the way, that we have women leading you know, 3 of the main maritime institutions. You're the exception, you're the minority, Simon. We have Bengti now leading SMF, who's here in the audience with us, and we have Ley Hoon and Caroline. I think that's a fantastic signal to the industry. Anyway, gaps and what we need to do to build the right talent to fill them. Ley Hoon, would you like to start?
I can start first. I think for those who have been in the industry, for all that I've talked to, they will stay in the industry. So our gap is not so much those who are already in the industry, because we are all bought in how important and critical this sector is, how meaningful the job is, and actually the job pays not too bad. It's actually quite well, the salary. So I think the hurdle really is the step towards the industry. How do we get young people, talent, and people from other sectors to join maritime in the first place? And that requires us to bring maritime and shipping to the public, to the young. I think what SMF is doing is very good, because we have reached out to the university. But I think that's also what we've been talking about, the image of the sector. How do we perhaps laymanize the sector and to show to the public that if you join this sector, it is something which is equally exciting as what we call fintech. We have marine tech now, based on what Minister has said earlier. We have digitalization, we have data analytics, we have automation, we have all that you need in other sectors. We are actually in a strong phase of transition this year, over the next few years, and decarbonization. These are all agendas which are important to get people who have fresh perspective to come in and transform the sector.
Do you want to make a comment on that, Simon? Actually, I'll put you specifically on the spot in relation to numbers, because I don't know how many naval architects we produce in a year. Maybe it's 60, something like that. China's producing, I'm guessing, 600 or whatever it is, multiples of it. How can we, continue to be differentiated and compete, given that we can't win on the pure numbers game?
I think I'm quite blessed. As an industry, we are able to be quite resilient and adaptable. We have seen the industry grow from a workforce of 40,000 in 2000 to triple the numbers by 2014. So we demonstrate we are able to do that as the demand scale. And within this number, of course, there's a high percentage of the graduates and postgraduates and design personnel. And today, we are facing slightly different challenge. We are scaling down our workforce because of the economic outlook situation. But I'm very certain that those good action that we have put in place in the last cycle, program that we work with our stakeholder, SMF, ASMI, and so on and so forth, are able to bring the talent back very quickly. The institution we have built up, like the universities, localize them, like SIT has the marine course now, are able to give us the talent pipeline when we scale. I'd like to also build on what Ley Hoon had mentioned about how then also to actually communicate the image of the industry to these young people, because the cycle now is different from the life cycle. The life cycle, the industry is upgoing, doing very well. Talents are coming in. So we are blessed with that. Today, we are in the down cycle, so we have to work harder in trying to promote the industry to our people. Right. Internally, as an industry, what we are trying to do is restructure the work to have now more knowledge and innovation content, and this actually create a conducive job for youngsters, the young talent, and also for ladies. The digitalization is similar to what Maritime is going through, trying to reduce the crewing on board, more crew on the shore. Here we are saying less people on the shop floor, more in the office, so we can have younger people and ladies also performing pretty good job. And so there's a lot of this transformation going on now.
And Caroline, with women, are we doing enough? Are we attracting women to the industry? Is there more we can do to create balance?
Okay, I struggle with promoting women just on its own. Okay. Yeah, I like to think that we just attract anyone and everyone, and we make it exciting, and people will just come in naturally. Regardless. Yeah. So I do struggle a little with that. Yeah, but I am on your board for 1 year now under your leadership in SMF, and after the second meeting, I came out, I was totally blown away by the efforts of SMF. The amount of outreach you do in getting maritime to be accessible, to be attractive to the schools and to everyone under the sun, actually. Yeah. So so I go back.
Yeah. Team in SMF. It's quite small, but they are just so active and reaching out, even during a pandemic, sort of reaching out to lots of people.
I was so blown away, and I woke up, I was thinking, what else can I do? And I thought about it, and what SSA has is that membership base. And I want to use that membership base to work together with SMF and to sustain your efforts, because it's gargantuan, and sustain your efforts, and hopefully we create a momentum, especially my younger members. They are so passionate about maritime, how to bring them into SMF and then be the ambassadors for a long time and to sustain that development. Right. Yeah.
I'm going to start tapping into questions from all of you in a second. I don't see them on my screen yet. I don't know whether that's just technology or you're all being very shy, but please don't hesitate to put in questions, and they will probably pop up. In a few minutes, I'm told I'll be getting your questions, so I'll sit on the edge of my seat for that. In the meantime, maybe we can shift tack and talk about innovation, particularly in relation to new fuels, because there is so much talk of decarbonization. We're the biggest bunker port in the world, so we have this sort of key role to play in this transition. And what would be interesting to hear from each of you on, for instance, from you, Ley Hoon, how can Singapore position itself as the largest bunkering port? From you, Caroline, you know, how do you think about this in terms of your company's assets and strategies? Because you're a bunkering company, and the focus is on presumably historical fuels. And then, you know, maybe coming back to this question of Singapore marine industries, how can, you know, the yards retool to serve new fuels and the future? But Ley Hoon, from a bunkering infrastructure perspective, any comments?
So we did well this year, better than last year, thanks to Caroline's industry, bunkering side. I would say that we want to be setting the standards together with other port authorities, should there be a new fuel. So we have set up, we have gotten Port of Rotterdam, as well as the Ministry of Japan and Trade Industry as well, to look at whether we can come together and work together on a new fuel type of standards. So that's one. For LNG, we have the experience of LNG. It took us 8 years to work with a group of port authorities to come up with the standards and for the standards to be adopted as ISO standards. So if we count backwards that you need a ship of future fuel, of future low carbon intensity by 2030 because your ship lasts 20 years, then we need to have the standard and start working on it now so that it's ready by 2020. So actually time is running out. So this is what I think from Singapore from a bunkering hub perspective, to maintain the position and also to push forward the industry, we will need to quickly work together on the different fuels in the different ecosystems and trials and come up with standards that will allow us to be ready, the infrastructure to be ready when the ship is ready.
Right. Thank you. And Caroline, as you answer this question, if I can throw in another one on top of the one I just had, not just in terms of your assets and company strategies, but what are you hearing from customers? Because I think the big question in the shipping industry is, what ship should we build? What propulsion should we have? So what are you hearing from your customer base for Hong Lam, and how are you thinking about it for your company?
Okay, so I'll start with for Hong Lam Marine. So as a bunkering company, so we have there are two parts to your question. The first part is the type of bunker tanker to build to carry the type of fuel. That's one. Then the other is, of course, the bunker tanker that we are building. What kind of engines do we use? So on this part where the type of bunker tanker, what type of bunker tanker should we build? We very much depend on the owners, the ship owners like yourselves. So we have a bit of a lag effect. We wait for you to build your ships, and then you have the demand for the type of fuel. And then if there's enough, then I'll build a bunker tanker to carry the fuel that you require. So in that sense, I can sit back a little and wait for you. Yeah. Then, so in LNG, we have looked at it 8 to 10 years ago. And we go back to it from time to time. We look at technology, we look at the building price, we look at the demand. And now I see there is a very clear direction for LNG bunker tankers. So I am vested in bunkering. I have to build those LNG bunker tankers. So that's the next step that we see. Yeah. Then the type of bunker tanker that we want to build because of environment. You know, in Singapore, we are a small port. The bunker tanker doesn't consume very much fuel. So is that something we want to really invest in? I think more for me is, how do I build a simpler bunker tanker, more cost efficient, less crew required, digitalization? And then when you talk about the type of fuel, electrification seems to be a no-brainer because it's so small, but it needs island-wide infrastructure, which will take a long time to have. So perhaps a hybrid of diesel electric. I see that, yeah. LNG, I'm not so there with it, yeah. So,
thank you. How do you think about this, Simon? For ASMI members, you know, there's LNG, but there's also LPG, there's batteries, there's methanol, hydrogen and ammonia at some stage. How can ASMI members play a role in this complicated journey?
I think the LNG journey, like what has been mentioned, started about 10 years back, and today I'm quite glad that we are able to deliver quite a full value chain product solution out of Singapore. Not just construction, also design and build approach. And that design and build approach has also built a design competency here for us to look at other future fuel, including hydrogen and electrification. So we have already started the journey on building electrification, which is the Norlec ferry vessel I mentioned, 3 of them being built in Singapore, Sengkang Marine Yard. And then for hydrogen, further afield, I have not seen any here yet, but we're also leveraging on our design houses in overseas, where they have a more stronger R&D ecosystem, where we participated in some of the test bidding. And we will be bringing this know-how back here and hopefully serve Singapore port and also the region, and how to help to spread out the technology into this location.
Great.
Yep.
Thank you. I'm going to start bringing in questions from the audience. This is supposed to be a conversation, and I'm sorry, this is a poor second to the 100 conversations that would be happening in this room in a normal year, but at least we can bring you in a little bit from wherever you are. We have a question here about how industry partnerships have changed, and specifically collaboration within the insurance sector. But maybe to keep it a little bit broad, you know, collaborations are such an important part of tackling these big problems for the future: decarbonization, digitalization, the topics we've been talking about. How do we, and by the way, sometimes the Nordics are perceived as being particularly good in terms of getting industry players together to work on participative projects. What can we do to improve collaboration amongst the players in the industry? Ley Hoon, would you like to?
So I would say it really is the environment. So for example, for decarbonization, we've set up the IEP to give us sort of, directions and advice in terms of how we should move forward. We've set up the funds, we have the funds here. And I think as what most of us would recognize, we do have an ecosystem of all the relevant players here. So my call to the industry will be, please come to us with ideas, because we want to make Singapore into a living lab. And you know that if you come and trial and test things in Singapore, we will make it work for you and the industry. So I would say the call will be opportunities is for us to all come together and start trialing and testing areas which currently is still a question mark in the industry out there, and we turn the question mark into a full stop.
Great. And I'm going to ask you a follow-up question, Ley Hoon, because we have another question here about collaboration in a regional sense, you know, with other countries and parties. How do you see our role and what we can do in terms of country partnerships?
So with other port authorities, we actually have quite close partnerships. So for example, at the beginning of the COVID situation, we actually got together with about 50 plus port authorities, and we made a commitment to keep the ports open. And we have also started some digitalization efforts. So for example, with China Maritime Authority, we are now working on interoperability of our database, so that in terms of port clearance, it can help to ease. So there are actually various ways which we can work with other port authorities, be it, for example, mutual recognition of certificates, be it digitalization, interoperability of the system, as well as thirdly, in terms of, for example, future fuel as well, because we are looking at the different type of bunkering fuel. So these are areas, and we have formed different classes. Actually, even in the area of cyber security, we have formed a PACnet, where basically if something happens or incident happened in, say, in Europe, for example, which has happened, for example, in the recent case with a shipping company, we get the information fast and we help disseminate to other port authorities. And that actually helps give people some time, give countries some time to respond and react before the actual incident hit their shore.
Right. I'm going to pass the next one to you, Caroline, which is a question about weaknesses, obstacles, risks for Maritime Singapore. You know, I guess from an SSA perspective, what do you perceive as the pain points, the sort of big challenges for us that we need to be conscious of?
Okay, so off the top of my head, I feel that fundamentally we are quite strong already. Yeah, we have very strong collaboration tripartite-wise, and the maritime industry is small enough to be cohesive and small enough to really talk to each other. And we do have a very passionate industry, very passionate members, as I can see in my short 1.5 years as SSA president. So the point that I feel we don't have enough depth. We don't have enough depth of knowledge. And that is something I feel we have to increase that in our young, even people like me. How do we increase our depth of knowledge that we can provide the true thought leadership? Yeah, that's my thought.
Yeah, that's a good one to think about as we start this new year, how to sort of deepen the knowledge and skills. The next one is actually a follow-up. I'm bringing you have lots of great questions from the audience, so thank you for bringing these in. This next one is about what industry associations can do to help affected, businesses and individuals. And again, without putting ASMI on the spot as being sort of, under lots of pressure since 2014, as you put it, Simon. How do you think industry associations, whether it's ASMI or broader associations, can help businesses under pressure?
Okay. Let me address it from two fronts. One is on the pandemic. Say, for example, last year, our immediate reaction is to focus on addressing our own industry problem and also serving our members. To reach out more to the wider community this year, we have actually launched digital platforms where we share information with the smaller company. Many are non-members, and also reaching out to the individuals who work in the maritime industry, because for our united front to fight against the COVID, we cannot have any weaknesses. And we recognize the weaknesses are non-members and also the smaller player. Yeah. So that is on the COVID as one example, how we can help on the broader ecosystems. And then from the economics front, we have put in place the ITM, the Industrial Transformation Roadmap, and it's quite well implemented over the last few years. And we started to see results in 2019 as the recovery comes. The LNG value chains are well built up. So what we are doing here is to work with our government agencies to actually extend the help to actually push as ITM2 to give more support to developing, especially now the decarbonization areas, say electrification, and as well as the hydrogen development. So these are things that we will be building into ITM2, and hopefully this extra help can also prepare our companies to the future growth businesses as the industry recover and ready to scale up.
And I think an interesting perspective here is relating back to our earlier point on collaboration, that this does need to be a sort of partnership approach between the public and private sector, because there are some things that we're going to need to do in terms of trialing, in terms of policy, in terms of standards that, government is well placed to help the industry with. On the other hand, I think it's, just not feasible for private sector just to sit back and say, well, the government should solve all our problems for us. I think the private sector needs to step up and invest, take some, calculated risks and chances and try things out and be willing to help. And then you have this very powerful combination. No one side on its own, no one company, but also not public sector on its own, not private sector on its own. And I think that's some of what you're pointing to here. Okay, we're moving into sort of the last 5 minutes of the panel discussion before we do the New Year toast. And the last question I'll take from the floor is about, what should maritime companies be thinking about in the next 5 years to stay relevant and competitive? We'll maybe broaden this and ask all of you, what do companies need to think about? What does Maritime Singapore need to think about? And maybe the big question, what's on your wish list for 2021? Ley Hoon, you want to start?
First, to maritime companies, I would say grab as much talent as you can. We're one of the few sectors who are still doing very well, so please grab talent now, and so that we have a good base and foundation to transform the industry. Second, I would say I think we need to form a lot of alliances, as we talk about collaboration, alliances, so that we can not only, like the container shipping is not just alliance in terms of containers placement, but also in terms of research in terms of how do we digitalization, how do we form alliances so that we can make the whole sector more efficient. And thirdly, we need to form JVs. JVs, just like PSA with the liners, we need to form JVs across the whole value chain, including the energy sector, shipyards, because the challenge we are facing now is not just a shipping challenge. It is something which has to come together with the infrastructure, with the vessel manufacturing. It has to all come together, including the energy companies.
Great. Caroline, what do companies and the community need to do, and what's on your wish list?
So hers is a very helicopter view. Yeah, so mine is, I really wish for the maritime companies, especially the SMEs, that the pace for digitalization cannot be underestimated. It is so quick now. Don't be left behind, and work together with SSA, MPA, IMDA, ESG, and get all the funding available to start your digitalization. I'm so worried that, you know, they get left behind. Yeah, so to me, that for next year, going on the next 5 years, digitalization and decarbonization. Yeah.
Simon?
I'd like to build on what Minister have defined as a 3D, the new 3D as a focus for our marine offshore engineering industry company. For the disruptions, I think it's important to stay alive as a company, very important. The recovery is coming. It takes time, but we need to at least be around to ride the recovery wave. We need to take care of our people during these disruptions. We cannot lose all our talent. It's a hard-earned capability and hard-earned talent pool that we have built over the past few decades. We need to retain them. We've got to build some more. We bring them in. The second D is decarbonizations. Is not only about decarbonizations of our own operation, which is needed to do our business. The decarbonization also brings about business opportunity for us. And then companies has to build competency, design capability to be able to offer those product solutions early. Otherwise, the space will be chopped by other people. So you need to be there and take the market share. And in these decarbonizations, there are many unknown. As we know, which is the final choice of viewer, we don't know. But we need to participate early in collaborations to learn about it, to influence the outcome, and then technically be prepared for it. The last D is digitalizations, and I think this is inevitable as a new normal for post-COVID. We need to do business in a new way. This is important to do our product solution to be more complex and more reliable. We need also accuracy, and that is digital design linked to digital manufacturing. And those are, without that, we can't deliver future solutions. And I think that is a very important aspect. COVID brings about the digitalization of the way we are working, the way we meet, and so on and so forth. And those are, all of a sudden, within 9 months, everybody are now digitized. So a more important focus for company will be digital design, digital manufacturing for the next few years.
And just building on that, maybe with a concluding remark, I will share my wish to all of you for 2021, and it's directed to you as companies and directed to all of you as individuals, which is stay healthy. Thank you. Stay safe, stay healthy. Thank you very much. Thank you all for tuning in. I know that we've had a lot of webinars and panels and Zooms over the past year, and we really appreciate you taking the time to tune in today. Please stay with us for just a couple more minutes as we toast to all of you and to Maritime Singapore. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sohmen-Pao and panelists for the insightful discussion. Before we conclude the event, we will now have a short New Year toast to mark the beginning of a new year. May I invite the panel to stand, please? I also like to invite our guest of honor, Mr. Chee, on stage to join our panelists. Mr. Chee, please. To those watching us from home or wherever you may be, please join us as we toast to the new year. Here's a toast wishing everyone a prosperous and smooth sailing year ahead. Cheers! Thank you, Mr. Chee and panelists for joining us at the SMF New Year Conversation. We have come to the end of the event, and thank you for joining us at the SMF New Year Conversation. Before you exit the session, kindly assist us in completing a short feedback form, which you can do so by clicking the link in the Zoom chat box or scanning the QR code. Thank you once again, and have a great year ahead.